Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. Have you ever wondered why some people seem really genuinely happy, and yet others experience an almost constant state of stress, frustration, and disappointment? If you've ever wondered what happy people do differently and how you can make sure you're one of them, you're going to love today's guest. Domonique Bertolucci is a happiness expert and the closely guarded secret behind some of the country's most successful people. She is the author of 6 books, including the international bestseller, The Happiness Code, 10 Keys to Being the Best You Can Be. And her advice has been seen, read, or heard by more than 10 million people. Her latest book, The Kindness Pact, 8 Promises to Make You Feel Good About Who You Are and the Life You Live, is now available. Domonique is here to show you not just how to get the life you want, but how to make sure you love the life you've got. Happiness is Domonique's life's work. And as she says, it's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Get ready to discover the secrets to feeling good about who you are and the life you live. But before I welcome Domonique to the show, I'm thrilled to invite you to join Spark Society, your virtual home to nurture your spirit and soul. Spark Society is a monthly lifestyle subscription bringing you a gorgeous source of inspiration, thought-provoking information, and entertaining content mixed with a bit of magic to help you create and live a life you love. Each month, you'll get a themed collection of spiritual brilliance and amazing resources to explore different areas of your life and help you thrive. As a society sister, you'll get everything you need delivered to your inbox, full of exclusive content coming to you from myself and your favorite Awakened Goddess Show guests. Each month, we will explore a metaphysical or lifestyle topic in a fresh, fun way, and you'll have the opportunity to connect with other fun, aspiring, spiritual-minded women like you. So come on over to theawakenedgoddess.com, click on the Join Spark Society button, and join us for just $1 for your first 2 weeks of subscription. See you there! Well, welcome, Domonique, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I am absolutely thrilled to have you join me today to talk about your new book, The Kindness Pact, and we're going to talk about the 8 promises to stop self-sabotage. So welcome!
Thank you so much for having me.
So your book, The Kindness Pact, was recently launched last month, so congratulations first off on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell me why you were inspired to write the book.
Well, I've actually written a number of books, but the inspiration behind this book, I was just looked around me and realized that most people are terribly unkind to themselves. They are very harsh, they're judgmental, they're self-critical of even the slightest failing. And yet those very same people are often, great parents, good colleagues, wonderful friends, loving partners, and they're giving everybody else the best of them, only to give themselves the worst. And the whole premise behind the Kindness Pact is it's time to start treating yourself with the same love, kindness, and respect that you show the other important people in your life.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Because really, when it comes down to it, it seems like we have to be the most important person in our own life so we can be there for other people.
To me, it's just like that announcement they make on the airline. Only when your own oxygen mask is fitted is it safe to help others. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same in everyday life. Unless you're taking care of yourself properly and you're taking care of your own, self-love, self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, then you're not as well equipped as you might be to take care of all the other important people in your life and to be who you want to be and to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. So you have 8 promises in the book. So I'd love for you to share what those 8 promises are and kind of give some examples of how we can use this in our life.
Absolutely. So the first promise is to accept your imperfections. I am perfectly imperfect. And the thing is, there's no such thing as a perfect person. And in fact, most of the qualities that we least like about ourselves are often the flip side of the qualities we most like about ourselves. Mm-hmm. So the way to apply this very first promise into your life is to accept yourself as a whole person, a person who has a number of wonderful strengths, some qualities that aren't as great as others, but to know that actually as a package, it's a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. The second promise is to always do your best. And the promise you make to yourself is, I always do my best, and my best is always good enough. And this is about not so much seeing yourself as perfect or imperfect, but now it's about not trying to be perfect and to do a perfect job of every single thing you do, and instead just to focus on being the best you can be, and to realize that in some parts of your life, the best that you can be might be a little bit average, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. As long as you've chosen 2 or 3 areas of your life where you really want to be brilliant at, you can be okay at the rest. There's no need for you to be perfect at every single thing that you do. In fact, you don't need to be perfect at anything that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like you say, there's really no such thing as being perfect, right? So
absolutely. And, perfection is the enemy of happiness. Happiness and perfection simply cannot, or perfectionism, simply cannot coexist. So the very minute you try to be perfect at something, or you expect yourself to be perfect, you have compromised your ability to be happy, and you've set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, so why is that? Why is perfectionism the enemy of happiness, and how does it get in the way?
So whenever you try to be perfect, you're setting yourself up against an impossible ideal. So the very minute you try to do that, you're guaranteed to fail. You simply can't achieve that outcome. And so you've set yourself up for disappointment, frustration, dissatisfaction, or worse, simply by aspiring to that perfect ideal in the first place. Now, frustration, disappointment, dissatisfaction directed at yourself is going to undermine any chance you have of feeling happy with who you are and the life you live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like I know I've had that experience myself where it's like I keep raising the bar on myself. And so it's like you never feel that sense of success because you're always trying to achieve something more.
Absolutely. And I think that there's nothing wrong with being achievement oriented, but you need to set yourself an achievable goal, enjoy, revel in the achievement of that goal and the glory of that moment. Then set yourself another achievable goal. And when I talk about this with my clients, they always say to me things like, well, that's not really pushing myself, because we've all been raised in such an achievement-oriented culture that, we have to be pushing ourselves, striving for better all of the time. Now, there's nothing wrong with personal improvement or setting yourself new goals, but what you really do need to do is enjoy achieving the ones that you have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can't enjoy achieving them if you set yourself up for failure in the first place by making them unachievable aspirations of perfection.
Yeah. Gosh, but how many people do that really? I mean, it seems like that's how society is kind of built to do that.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most common ways that people, in particular women, do undermine their chance of feeling truly good about themselves is through perfectionist behavior.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder, is it harder for women to be happy than men?
I think that women are worse than men at a few key things that do undermine their happiness. So women are much more likely to try and be all things to all people all of the time. Women are much more likely to respond with guilt when they feel that they've let someone or something down in terms of being, all things to all people. And women are much more likely to succumb to perfectionist behavior. Mm. So I think men have a different set of challenges when it comes to being happy, but women do undermine their own chance of being happy in those three big ways.
Interesting. Okay, so what's the next promise?
So the third promise is to stop comparing yourself to others. And here we say, I have no need to see myself as more than or less than anyone else. And I think this is everything. This covers everything from, attempting to keep up with the Joneses, comparing your life to the Photoshop lives of celebrities that you see in gossip magazines. And these days, very much comparing yourself against the lives of your friends or acquaintances on social media as well. And the thing to remind yourself here in order to, embody this promise is also just to remind yourself that all you're seeing is what somebody chose to present, whether it was a celebrity, whether it was your neighbors, or whether it was a friend or an acquaintance or somebody you went to school with 25 years ago. All you're seeing is what they want to show you. A great example is whenever I cook something and it turns out fabulous, I always put it on Instagram. But I don't put the cheese on toast on Instagram, and I don't put the thing that got burnt on Instagram. And I'm a pretty good cook, but I'm not flawless. But you might look at the photos of things I've cooked and just think, oh my goodness, she is perfect. No, I'm not. I'm just sharing the bits I want to share. And I think that, okay, that's a really simple example, food, but across the board, remind yourself that you're not actually seeing the whole picture. So not only should you not compare yourself to anybody else, but when you do, it's a false comparison because you only saw what they wanted you to see.
Well, yeah, and isn't that interesting? I mean, it's so easy to fall into that. Like you're saying, it's like we're seeing what other people are putting out there, and then we compare ourselves to that. And I think that was really well put, how you said, well, I don't put the ones that get burnt on there. We're not showing our flaws, or we're not showing when things go awry. We're showing when we're really proud of something, and so we put it out there. And so, yeah, it's interesting how the natural tendency is to look at that and compare ourselves to that.
And to presume that's the whole story. And celebrities are a really interesting one, because even when a celebrity puts themselves out there as real, a beautiful photo montage of women without makeup in Vanity Fair, there's still a reason behind it. There was a picture of Kate Winslet that I'm thinking of. But that image of makeup-free Kate Winslet was still shared with a very specific intention, which is for me to respect her as an actress because she's willing to go without, the things we take for granted as part of beauty. So what was being shared was still to control a message that I received. Now, ultimately, in that case, it's not that it's a negative message, but there's still no value in me kind of going, okay, so I don't look as good as she does without makeup. Well, the studio was still lit, let me tell you. It might not have been Photoshopped, but someone was still taking care of the lighting.
Yes.
And then also remind yourself that was shared with me for a reason. It's probably not how she looked when she got out of bed on Tuesday.
That's a great point. I didn't even think that far into it. But yeah, it is intentionally shared for a purpose or for a reason. Yeah.
And I think the key with all of that, whether it's social media or whether it's, something you see in a celebrity magazine, whether it's a high-end magazine or a gossip magazine or, any form of social media, some people would say, we should abstain from the lot. I think that sort of takes a bit of the fun out of life myself. Yeah. But I think that you just need to view it as entertainment. When you watch a TV show, you don't presume that unless somebody's telling you it's reality, you don't presume that it's real. You just watch it for entertainment. And I think when it comes to social media or magazines or publications, just take it as entertainment and don't believe in it any more than you believe in the Tooth Fairy or Wonder Woman.
Yeah. It's not the Holy Grail.
No.
It's Photoshopped.
Absolutely.
Those really, really long, like deer-like legs on the Victoria's Secret models are Photoshopped too.
Absolutely. I do an online video show called DBTV, and I showed people once how I, in inverted commas, it's filmed in my kitchen, and I showed them how I Photoshop the kitchen for the video, and you can see everything that's normally on the bench shoved into a corner. Oh. But do I show you that corner? No, normally, no, of course not. I crop the video so that the corner where the kitchen roll, you know?
Yeah.
I don't see the kitchen roll in my video because I've, you know, theoretically photoshopped it out of the image. I've moved the kitchen roll across. So when you look at my kitchen, you think, oh, so pristine and tidy. And then you look at yours and think, oh, you know, it's so unsightly.
Yeah.
It's because that image has been manufactured to enhance the entertainment.
Yeah. And then we're basing our reality on our perception of these things.
Absolutely. And so I just encourage people, don't compare. Instead, set your personal best and aspire to that, and to leave everybody else to their own personal best and their own aspirations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like to say, keep your eyes on your own paper.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Okay. So we're on number 4. Yes.
Number 4 is to believe in your potential. And this promise we say, I fully expect myself to have a happy and fulfilling life. Yeah. And the key here is about not worrying, about letting go of your fears and your concerns for the future, and instead living in the moment and operating with the assumption that life is going to turn out fine. Now, there will be ups and downs in your life in the same way that there will be in everybody else's, but most of those you won't see coming anyway. So I suggest that you save your energy for dealing with the things that you couldn't predict, instead of expending all of your energy worrying about what might go wrong. Mm-hmm. Just presume life is going to turn out fine. So that, for me, that's kind of like my operating system. I move through life expecting things to be fine, and when they're not, I deal with them.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So I totally agree with you. However, sometimes, I know I'm not alone here, we get into kind of like a little bit of a cycle where there's something that's really important to us, and we have fear come up or anxiety, and then we kind of, once you have that physical sensation of anxiety or fear, I find that it's hard, or it can be challenging to get out of that feeling. So what do you suggest?
So the activity that I suggest to my clients is to do a written activity, which is to document your fears and concerns. And I always say, don't document them in all their hideous glory. Yeah. Just put down a couple of keywords so that you understand what it is you're thinking about. And then you make 2 columns. And there is a column for the things that you have influence over, and there's the column for things you have no influence over. Now, I always say have influence over because I think control is an illusion. You know, we love to say, oh, what can you control? But actually, we're not controlling much anyway, but you do have the opportunity to influence outcomes. Mm-hmm. So then you work down your list and you put a tick in whichever column that particular fear or concern relates to. Is it something you can influence, or is it something you have no influence over? Then the 3rd column is where if it is something you can influence, you make a note of how you intend to influence that. What is it that you are going to do?
Okay.
You know, I'm a mother of 2 small children. One of my biggest fears is a road traffic accident, you know, crossing the street type accident. Mm-hmm. Can I control that? No. Can I influence it? Well, I can't tell you how rigorous I am about road rules. So that's all I can do to influence that situation. Can I prevent a drunk driver from flying around the corner and losing control of their car? No, I can't. But what I can do is teach my children the road rules so that I decrease the risk of them walking across the street without looking. And so then I don't sit there agonizing about what might happen. I say, I've done the bit that I could do to reduce the risk of this happening.
Sure. Okay. And then so that sounds like it would appease that part of yourself that is feeling out of control. Because like you said, we can't really control things, but when we feel like we're out of control, that fear and anxiety comes up. So it sounds like with this exercise, you're acknowledging your feelings and you're not really feeding into them, but you're taking it to how can I influence this situation? How can I positively impact the situation? And and then you take action.
Exactly. And then you return that sense of being in control of your destiny. You return that sense of power to yourself. You are now empowered to reduce the risk of these things happening. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're empowered to get rid of them altogether, but you're certainly empowered enough to reduce the risk of these things happening. I have a friend and she's always worried about this health concern or that health concern. I'm like, go to the doctor, have a checkup. Oh, I'm scared what I might find. I'm like, really? So you'd rather worry about what might be wrong with you instead of going, having your smear, having your mammogram, getting your heart tested, doing your blood pressure, whatever it might be for your health concern. She's sitting there worrying. Goodness knows, she's probably giving herself an ulcer. Whereas she, does have the opportunity to reduce the risk of any of these things being life-threatening by going and getting checked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and isn't it interesting how we avoid things because we're afraid, but then in avoidance, it creates that same type of fear and anxiety anyway.
It's just like when you're a child and you feel scared of the dark and all you need to do is turn your light on, but you feel like you can't put your foot on the ground outside of your bed in order to cross the room and turn the light on. But as soon as you do, you realize there's nothing to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I also like to remind people of is you don't need to conquer your fear in order to move on. You just move on. Mm-hmm. So I'm always talking about not necessarily conquering fears, but moving through them. And when I experience fear, I say to myself, oh, I'm afraid of that. Isn't that interesting? No negative judgment. I don't think, oh, I'm afraid of that. I'm so weak to be afraid of that, or putting some negative judgment on my fear. Mm-hmm. I just say, isn't that fascinating? How interesting. Well, excuse me, fear. I've got stuff to do here. Yeah. Move along. Huh. And I think we can put so much energy into agonizing about our fears and why can't I conquer this fear? So just getting on with it and just accepting you have fear, but not letting that trouble you. My daughter was doing a talent contest at school, and for the first time in her life, she experienced, nerves, butterflies in her tummy, and she described this feeling to me. And she was 6 at the time, and I said to her, well, these are your nerves. This is your body telling you this is really important to you. And I said, but here's what you do. You say, hello, nerves. I hear you, but if you'll excuse me, I've got a song to perform. And I think it's exactly the same with fear. Hello, fear. You're here. How interesting. Well, if you'll excuse me, I've got stuff to do.
Yeah. And then do you find that when you do that, does the sensation of the fear and the anxiety subside, or do you just move forward?
I think most of the time it subsides, but it doesn't always. Mm-hmm. I think the majority of the time, moving through your fear disempowers the fear. Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's still there. And next time you show up and you have to do that, you'll still experience fear. Or next time you have to deal with that situation, you might still experience fear, but you don't let it stop you. Yeah. So you don't give the fear. It's about not giving your fear or any negative thought any more power than it deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to power up those happy feelings, the happiness.
Save your energy.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about the kindness pact and keeping those eight promises, and we've obviously got another 4 to cover, but the whole thing about that is it releases your energy to do what you want to do and be who you want to be, because you're no longer beating yourself up in all these different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what's the 5th promise?
The 5th promise is to silence your inner critic. And the promise here is I only welcome thoughts that support and encourage me. And the advice I give to people here is to tell their inner critic to shut up. And, you wouldn't put up with the things that your inner critic says to you from your friends. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't expect anybody else to speak to you the way that you're capable of speaking to yourself. And I think that one of the messages that I love to leave people with is that you should never speak to yourself more harshly than you would to a small child. Because when you're in the company of a small child, in that moment, in that interaction, whether it's your child or anybody else's, you are the guardian of their self-esteem. But as an adult, you're the guardian of your own self-esteem. So you need to guard it vigilantly.
Wow. That's a really strong statement. I think that is so important for people to get, that we are the guardian of our own self-esteem, and that inner critic and what we're saying to ourselves really is, it's our responsibility to, like you say, tell it to shut up. You don't, like you said, you don't choose, like, you would probably distance yourself away from those people that would speak to you like that. And that's definitely something that we should be implementing on ourselves.
It's a bit like the fear thing too. I always say to people, to my clients and the people who come on my workshops and courses, I'm not telling you you're never going to have a moment of negative self-talk or a negative self-comment again. Mm-hmm. You can't always control what you think, but you can decide what to listen to. I had an experience recently. I was running a workshop, and during that workshop, I discovered a mistake. And I heard my inner critic say to me, "Oh, you're so stupid." Ugh. And my instant reflex was, "Excuse me, there are no stupid people in this room." It was a more polite way of saying, "Shut up."
Yeah.
So, I do this for a living. I write about this. This is my life's work. I'm not infallible. I still had a moment of negative self-talk, but I didn't engage in it. I didn't welcome it. I didn't fuel it. I said, "Get lost." Mm-hmm. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. So what's number 6?
So number 6 is to challenge yourself. And the promise we make here is I'm brave and I'm willing to step outside of my comfort zone. Because confidence and self-belief are like muscles. You need to exercise them if you want them to grow stronger. And the thing that happens when you challenge yourself or step outside of your comfort zone is you tell your subconscious, I'm worth this risk. I'm worth taking this risk. And it doesn't, you don't need to throw yourself out of a plane to step outside of your comfort zone. It could be just something very simple and very day-to-day that you do, but it just expands and it stretches your experience and therefore your self-confidence and belief in who you are and your potential.
Yeah, because isn't it that you get the most confidence boost when you step into or step through your fear to do something that you aren't certain you can do, and then you succeed at it. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even if you don't succeed at it, you discover it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Even if you crash and burn, the very fact that you get up and you dust yourself off will still enhance your confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
surviving enhances your confidence.
Yeah, because even just stepping in and knowing that it was something that you were afraid of and taking that risk of stepping forward, yeah, that in itself gives you a boost too.
And putting yourself out there.
Awesome. So what's the next one?
So the next promise, the 7th promise, is to stop making excuses. And the promise here is I take full responsibility for who I am and the life that I live. And this is about where I remind people that it's up to you. It's not anybody else's fault. If you are an adult, the only person you can blame for your life is you. Now, I'm not saying that other people haven't contributed to your journey. Other external factors don't influence the journey that you're on or the experience you're having, but it's up to you what you do with that. And so one of the things you need to do is consistently make choices that support and nurture your self-esteem, not undermine or compromise it. Mm-hmm. So it's really important that you are, I know I say you don't need to be cruel to be kind to yourself, but you do need to be honest. So this is where, you're honest with yourself and you have a bit of reality check and you step up and you be a grown-up about who you are and the life you're living. And then you take responsibility for making sure that it is the life you really do want to be living and that you are on your path to your best life. You're not sort of sitting back, disappointed, dissatisfied and making excuses and looking at who, what and where and how you can blame for what is or isn't going on in your life.
Sure. So I'm wondering, do you have like kind of a real life example of this that you can share?
I think that a really great example of this is people who are unsatisfied in their job. So a lot of the time people come and, I hear them, they come to my workshops and they tell me how much they hate their job, but they don't leave.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you should tell your boss to take this job and shove it and walk out the door, but there's a process that you can go through to find another job. You update your CV, maybe you talk to a recruiter, maybe you look on a website, maybe you expand your network, but there is a process to getting a new job. And then people say, oh, yes, but the reason that I don't get a new job is because, well, I'm on really good money here, or I'm about to get tenure, or, well, I think my boss will get a promotion and I'll get a new boss and everything will be okay. That's fine. Then stay and be happy. I had this experience in my own life where I was in a job and I will pull no punches here. I thought my boss was an idiot. And, he sort of didn't know what he was doing, but he wasn't honest about that. He didn't say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's work out how. He sort of pretended he knew what he was doing when he didn't. Mm-hmm. But this was I'm showing my age now because this was at the start of the dot-com boom. And I thought I've got so much I can learn from this environment and from the clients we're getting to work with and things like that. And at the time, initially, I was coming home, he won't be listening to this. He's not a goddess. So his name was Mike. And every day I'd come home and I'd moan about what Mike had done today and what Mike had said today and what a jolly idiot Mike was. And then I realized, if you don't like it, you can leave because he's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. Or you can recognize that you actually have a lot you can learn, not necessarily from Mike, but from the environment that you and Mike are in. So you need to make a choice. This is my taking responsibility and having this conversation with myself. Put up and shut up. Or get out, weigh out the options, work out what's best for you. But if you decide to stay because you want the experience, you need to stop complaining about Mike. It's not news that he's a twit and he's not about to change. Mm-hmm. So this was really about me taking responsibility and owning my choice. And my choice was to stay because I felt that I had more to gain by staying than I did by leaving at that particular point. And I gave myself a time limit. I said, stay for a year because once you've got this on your CV for a year, it will open so many doors for you. This was back in my corporate life. I stayed for a year, and 1 year and 3 days I resigned. But the rest of that year, I never complained about Mike being an idiot again because it was my choice to stay. So I took responsibility, and he no longer had the power to, upset me or frustrate me or any of those things because I was there by choice. Mm-hmm. It was my choice, and I was completely in touch with what I was gaining from making that choice.
Yeah, what a great reframe. Because how many times do we find ourselves in situations where we're feeling almost like the victim, right? And we just like stick it out for whatever reason, and then it gives us something to complain about.
Exactly. And another really great example, is the person who talks about losing weight mm-hmm. and continues to eat food that does not support a weight loss regime. Yeah. Why not just take responsibility and either change your diet or say, I should lose weight. People are always telling me I should lose weight, but you know what? I don't actually want to make the changes that will require. So I'm just going to accept myself for the weight that I am and stop criticizing myself for setting myself up in this way. Mm-hmm. So there's two very clear options. Take one of them and own it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then line yourself up with that.
Yeah. And instead of people get so hung up on what was the right course of action and the wrong course of action. I always say the only bad decision is indecision. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you weigh up your options, you make a choice, you own that choice. You take responsibility for who you are and the life you live.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. All right, so what's the next promise?
So the final promise is to love yourself. And this is the promise you make here is simply, I always treat myself with love and respect. And I guess this promise is the one that ties all the others together. Because what you really need to be doing in life is treating yourself as you would your closest friend. With the same, I talked about being the guardian of your self-esteem. You need to be as kind to yourself as you would be to a child. You need to be as appreciative of yourself as a lover would be. You need to forgive your failings. And you need to, this whole idea of giving yourself the same kindness, love, and respect that you do the other important people in your life.
Yeah, self-love. Boy, that's like the theme of this month. So that's like perfect. We definitely have to love ourselves. Because I think that, yeah, the more we're able to love ourselves, the more we accept ourselves just as we are. We take that pressure off to be perfect or compare, and then we are able to radiate our joy and happiness and our light.
And we're able to be more of who we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
More of the person that we want to be. Exactly as you're saying, we're able to bring more into the world, both for our own benefit and for, the collective benefit, by being good, loving, and kind to ourselves. I'm constantly finding myself in conversations, whether with my clients, people at my workshops, or socially, where I'm saying, give yourself a break. Mm-hmm. Ease up. Ease up.
Yeah. What's that saying? I think I'm going to screw it up and get it backwards because I'm dyslexic, but, where they say work to live or live to work.
Exactly.
Like we get that twisted around. So speaking of work, I know you work a lot with high-powered CEOs across the world. And, when you think about what they have, the success and the life and the power and the money, you'd think that they'd be like really, really happy, but I know a lot of them aren't. So how do you help them be more happy?
Well, I think the key here is that everybody's the same. Some people just have more zeros at the end of it. Mm-hmm. So, regardless of where you are, for example, in a career journey, it doesn't mean, even when you're the CEO, it doesn't mean that you never have doubt. Or it doesn't mean that, just because you can buy more things, it doesn't mean those things give you satisfaction. One of the biggest things I find myself talking to my clients about, in particular the entrepreneurial ones, is that whole always do your best. Mm-hmm. Because they're often especially the female ones, very caught up in expecting perfection from themselves and not giving themselves a chance to stop, appreciate what they've achieved, smell the roses, and then move on to the next level. I also had a client, and this was a fascinating one because he was really financially extremely well off. There were a lot of zeros. And he was very unhappy in his role, and he had so much fear about leaving his company. And the fear was all tied to his financial security. And I thought, my goodness, you earn $5 million and you're experiencing the same fear that somebody who earns 50, 60,000 is experiencing. The numbers are different, but the emotions aren't different.
Right.
And the journey to moving through that fear and this whole thing about believing in your potential and acknowledging what you've got influence over and what you haven't, it's the same journey. It just had a different zero on it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, this is kind of like a side random question that my intuition...
We like those.
Yeah, I know. I always just play with my intuition and go with it. So, having that we have worked with a lot of high-powered CEOs and business people, I'm curious if you've seen a theme in terms of how they've created their success. Because I know there are a lot of struggling entrepreneurs, they're trying to get businesses going and they're like in the startup phases. And I'm curious if you've noticed any patterns around maybe happiness or how they've done it, how they've created that success.
I think I've noticed two quite different things. They're almost opposing things because I see that people either have achieved great success because they never doubted it was possible. Mm-hmm. So the self-doubt was missing. They just presumed it would happen. Or often I see the flip side where they never necessarily intended it to be as big as it was. Mm. They just were doing something they felt passionate about, but then they continued to seize opportunities as they were presented. So each of these things, whether it was that the vision wasn't big and they simply grew as the opportunity grew, or whether the vision was huge and the doubt wasn't there, they just always assumed they could do that. In both cases, I think what the most successful people are able to do is not let fear stop them. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean they don't have fear, but they're not letting it stop them. And I think that's, a really common theme. Then the next common theme I see is when they come to work with me, what they're really wanting to do is make sure that this success isn't at any cost. Mm-hmm. It's time to, because often in those very early stages, people are, they're working around the clock and they're very, very driven. But often when they come to see me, they're at a stage where they can take a breath and they're saying, whoa, it's starting to affect my health. It's too consuming. Maybe I want to have a family. Maybe I feel like I never get to see my partner. Maybe, it's been too long. And so one of the key things that I do with my clients is get back to the basics of what are their values for their whole life and how does this professional success need to fit in with the rest of their life instead of being in competition with the rest of their life.
Yeah, I love that because they have that success and now they're shifting their perspective and their priorities, it sounds like. And so, how wonderful is that they are taking that opportunity to say, hey, I know that I can have it all, basically. I can have the success, but I can also have the balance, the happiness in life. So I love that.
I always think of it too, it's a bit, this whole idea of having it all. I always say, you can't have it all, but you can have the things that matter. Mm-hmm. And I think about it as a buffet meal. You go to a buffet and think about like a hotel buffet. They're huge. And you eat everything on that buffet and you're going to get really ill.
Yeah.
But you go to that buffet and you choose yourself a starter, you choose yourself an entree, you choose yourself a dessert, or maybe you decide, which meal you're wanting that buffet to be. And you can have a beautiful meal. But you go and eat every single thing on that buffet and you're going to get very, very ill.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for the rest of your life. You push yourself too hard in every direction and you're going to get ill. You push yourself, you go to the buffet and all you do for the entire meal is eat from the cheese section, you're still going to get ill. So if all you do is just push yourself for work, you'll still get ill. But if you see life as this wonderful buffet and you make discerning choices through it to have the things that you want and the things that matter to you, then you'll have a happy and fulfilling life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. So looking back, I know that, you have given so much great information. You have the 8 promises and, to some people or a lot of people that might seem a lot. So I'm wondering for the listeners, what's a practical way to implement this if they want to take it maybe just one day at a time?
Well, one of the things that I suggest to readers is absolutely read the book from cover to cover, but then maybe just each day or even each week, focus on in keeping that promise. So maybe you say, Monday, I'm going to catch myself every time I try to be perfect. Or I'm really going to focus this week on negative self-talk. You don't need to kind of obsess about these 8 promises. That's the last thing I'd want anyone to do.
Yeah.
Just sort of, or say to yourself, one of the things that I am, worst at is maybe sitting in my comfort zone and not being brave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prioritize that promise. I'm going to start showing up more in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Those are both really great suggestions. You can kind of do it as a day of the week kind of thing and implement one each day of the week and focus on that. Or like you said, pick kind of intuitively, which one feels like the one that really sticks out for you and go with that. Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys definitely have to get her book because you're going to love it. And, such great information and practical tips that are going to help you be more happy in your life. Yeah. Awesome. Well, so anything else that you wanted to say that you didn't have a chance to? Or?
But, if I was to leave your listeners with one thought, and this is probably my biggest personal life lesson over the past few years is that I used to think there was nothing more important than achieving your goals. But now I know there's something just as important, and that is to feel good about yourself regardless. Mm-hmm. And that's the place that I want everybody to get to, where your confidence and your self-esteem isn't contingent on what you've done or what you have. It's based on who you are. And you just feel good about that.
Yeah. Yeah, you are enough just as you are.
You are enough.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Domonique, for joining me today. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I've really enjoyed being on the show.
Yeah, so how can people find out more about you?
Okay, so people can find out more about me at my website, DomoniqueBertolucci.com. I always say to people, if you're really worried about spelling it, Google can usually find me. It's unusual enough. And on my website, I have a whole range of free resources that you can access, videos, some printables, a whole range of things that will help you live your best possible life. And the theme behind my website is to get the life you want, but also to love the life you've got. I'm also really active on social media, in particular on Facebook, and that's the best place to come. So Facebook, Domonique Bertolucci, is the best place to come to ask me your questions and find out what's going on and what I'm up to. And the final place that we can connect, and that I love to connect with people, is on my newsletter, which goes out every Monday, my Monday morning message of inspiration and encouragement, motivation and support. And that's read by people in more than 60 countries. And it's called Love Your Life. And there I give people inspiration, but also very practical advice about how to take those inspirational ideas and actually make them a reality in your own life. And of course, there's the book. The book is The Kindness Pact, 8 promises to make you feel good about who you are and the life you live.
Love it. Well, I'm going to have all links to everything on your page for the show. So listeners, you guys can just click through to those links and everything will be conveniently located there for you. So awesome. Well, now I'd love to hear from you guys. The best discussions happen after the show over at theawakenedgoddess.com. So get yourself over there and leave a comment right now. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, subscribe to the show. And of course, it would be amazing if you shared this with all of your friends. And if you want even more incredible resources, come on over to theawakenedgoddess.com and sign up for email updates. And until next time, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.